This recording back on. Welcome to everybody. My name is Caitlin Smoky Belknap. I'm Move to Amends National Director, and the other folks who are going to be helping to facilitate this call are Greg Coleridge, our Outreach Director. Here, I'll make it so that you can see him, and Jessica Munger, our Program Director, and George Friday, who is one of our founding board members, and Tara Ingram, who I don't see easily, but she just got here. Yeah, here, one of our other board members. So we'll get started here. First of all, I just want to thank you all for being here. It's been a long time since we've had an opportunity to really talk to Move to Amends whole supporter base, other than through social media. So maybe you heard about this meeting through social media and have been following us there, in which case everything has probably seemed more or less normal, notwithstanding all of the not normalness that is going on in the rest of the world. But just so everybody knows, we switched over to a new database, a new website system, kind of right before the coronavirus outbreak, and then had a series of numerous technical difficulties with our ability to email all of you and keep you updated on what's going on. So as everybody kind of went into hibernation and or focusing on all of the implications of the pandemic, we haven't been able to talk to you. So we're still here. We've been operating, although we are making some adjustments, and frankly, we have had to lay off our staff team due to fundraising shortages in this new environment. And so those of us who have been on staff are working as volunteers right now because we believe in the cause, and we expect that to be temporary layoffs, but that's where we are because we weren't able to qualify for payroll relief as a 501c4 organization. So that's the real of what's been going on with us. We are definitely all involved in supporting our communities and all of the kind of political discussions that have been happening, and we can talk about some of that here today, and what you all have been doing. We want to hear about that, what you think is most important in this time. But just wanted to give you a little bit of that update. This meeting is being recorded, so if you have to jump off early, we will be making it available and putting it on our website so you can tune in after the fact as well. And this is meant to be a participatory discussion. So right now everyone's mics are muted, but we will adjust that at the right time so that you can weigh in and participate too, but you also can chat to the co-hosts right now or whenever you like. And let's see, I just wanna, before I turn it over to Greg, kind of the last thing I'll just mention is one of the things that I've been really thinking about is how do we, and what we've been talking about at Move to Amend too, is how do we come out of this whenever we can literally come out of our homes, but also come out of the kind of current situation and recognize that there still will be tons of ramifications that will last long past whenever that moment is, in terms of economically, psychologically. The ruling elite right now are trying to have a field day with the rest of the resources that we have in this country. So there's massive theft and pillage happening. And also we know that the climate crisis is right behind / on top of this pandemic situation as well. And so there are a lot of reasons why we need to make sure that we use this moment and what comes next, whatever that is, to continue to push for systemic change in ways beyond probably anything that any of us were thinking about back in February. And we need to continue to think as big as we can and as bold as we can. And one of the questions that I've been really asking myself is, if this is a revolutionary opportunity, what should I personally be doing? And then what should all of the things that I'm connected with be doing to make the most strategic use of this moment and what's to come? So I hope with that in mind, we can go on to the rest of the evening. And again, thank you so much for being here. Really looking forward to talking with you about all of this. And I'm going to hand it over to Greg.
Well, thanks, Caitlin. Thank you all so much for joining us. Hopefully, wherever you are, you're safe and staying as physically isolated as possible if you have that option, and are having most, if not all, of your anyway physical basic needs met. But we know that's certainly not the case with everyone, and we need to do what we can to support those of us who do not have, unfortunately, all of their needs being met. As Caitlin, mentioned, and certainly you all are personally experiencing, these are unprecedented and uncertain times with this pandemic and crisis. We're connected, but they have been, I think, both caused by and together have impacted our governance, our government, governing institutions. Certainly, they have been caused by, as well as impact the environment, and they've been caused by, and to a certain extent, impact our psyche, our mental and emotional states. And so it is totally understandable, given the unprecedented, unusual, historic conditions that we face, to be anxious and fearful and unnerved by what all is going on. But it's also in these uncertain times, I think, and many of us believe, as Caitlin has reflected upon, an opportunity. It is a moment where we can think about significant change, because there is some disruption, there is some flux. And so we need to be ready. And part of that readiness is to be emotionally resilient and understand what it's going to take some risks, do things that have maybe in our lifetimes, or certainly with us personally, have never been done before. So, there's a lot of events out there these days as we're all trapped indoors, web teach-ins and the like, that are just excellent in terms of material and information. But one of the problems with them is that the information is going one way. Opportunity to dialogue, to discuss, really go back and forth. And so that's what one of the purposes of the two purposes tonight. We're here tonight to hear and listen. And we hope this is a safe and affirming space where you can share how you are doing personally, mentally, what you're thinking, how you're feeling in this incredibly unique time. And feelings we want to share as well, but we certainly want to spend a good deal of the time at the beginning to sort of find out where you are at. Not what you are planning to do necessarily right now, just where are you personally, again, mentally, emotionally, and the like. And then second purpose is to just sort of share with us where you think we are and where we need to go from your experience, based on the circles you are immersed in, groups you're connected with, events that you've been taking in via Zoom and the like, reflections as you've maybe stated or the like. Where do you think we should go? We've got some ideas. We certainly have some plans we want to share. But again, we're here to hear. So with that, I just wanted to sort of say, let's begin, and want to begin by turning this over to Tara Ingram, who previously mentioned is on our board, who's going to help us with a centering. So Tara?
Hi, everyone. Good to see y'all.
So as we transition out of whatever we were doing prior to this call, whatever we've been doing throughout this day, whatever's occupied our mind, we want to take a moment to become present together. So today we're going to walk through a grounding exercise. It's called 5-4-3-2-1, and it's a simple but pretty powerful tool actually for centering and grounding and our full presence right now. It's also actually an excellent tool that you can use really anytime that you find your mind spinning with anxious thoughts or you find any difficult emotions welling up. So it gets us, what it does is it really gets us connected to our physical body through our 5 senses. And that's really how we interface with reality. So the 5 senses are like tethers that really anchor us to the moment. So first, just take a moment to become mindful of your breath. Turn your attention inside. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable. You don't have to. Just take a few deep breaths and invite your body back into the moment to slow everything down. And then slowly become aware of the environment right around you in your physical space. And look around for 5 things that you can see. For example, maybe the wood grain on a desk in front of you, or a plant nearby, or the carpet under your feet. So just look around and kind of name to yourself 5 things that you can see. Then shift to become aware of 4 things that you can touch. And really notice the texture. It might be things you can literally touch right in front of you. It might be something that is across the room, but you could imagine touching it and what the texture of that thing would be like. You can even notice the sensation of gravity itself or the floor beneath you. Things whatever you might be sitting on, where your body is coming in contact with that thing that you're already touching. So 4 things you can touch. And then 3 things that you can hear. Tune into your listening, not judging, just hearing, noticing. It might be traffic noise, there might be other voices. Also silence between the sounds. And then shift to 2 things you can smell. There might be some subtle scent even. And if you don't notice any particular scent with your smell, then you might remember something like coffee this morning or tea or something you ate earlier. So you can also just connect with your sense of smell through memory and imagination. And then finally, 1 thing you can taste, either right now or again, through memory or imagination. And then just notice how your body feels in this moment. And now I thank you for doing that with me, and I'll pass it back on over to Greg.
Well, thanks, Tara. Hopefully that was something that helped all of you feel more centered. It certainly did me. All right. We want now to give an opportunity to, over the next period of time, like about 20 minutes, let's reserve for. So it's about a quarter till time. What we'd like to do is give you an opportunity. Again, the emphasis is to take maybe upwards of a minute. Don't have to, you're not certainly compelled to at all. But for those who feel so moved, if you would not sharing to begin with your name, where you're from, and I'll acknowledge people. Once they acknowledge themselves, I think everyone has been unmuted. So we want anyone who would like to be called upon to share, how you're feeling personally at this juncture. Please just say your name followed by the back, and then I will try to keep a running tab upon you in the order that you have acknowledged yourself. And please try to be mindful of the time to allow others, but don't be inhibited as well. Again, no force, but people who feel so moved and feel inspired, called upon, please feel free to share.
Randy Hicks, Sacramento, California.
Okay. Before doing it, I'll just try to take a stack. Randy, anyone else like to be on the stack?
Michelle Corpus, Concord, California.
Okay, Michelle. Anyone else?
Karen Grissom, Portland, Oregon.
Karen, one more.
Charlie Cooper, Baltimore, Maryland.
Great. All right, Randy, please.
Okay, put myself off mute here. Here's what I'm concerned about. This is what's scaring me the most. We are concerned that the healthcare crisis that we're having now is not going to, thanks to the for-profit healthcare system that we have, things are going to get out of hand really quick. And so one of the reasons I joined Move to Amend was to have so we could have some kind of control over the politicians, so we could have a single payer healthcare system. That's number one. Number two, the stimulus. We're all going to end up paying for the stimulus, because if you start spending trillions and trillions of dollars, somehow the trillions and trillions of dollars is going to have to get paid back, either by the state budget or by the federal budget. And we're going to start, and that's going to mean they're going to go after entitlement programs. They're going to start going after Medicaid and Medicare. They're going to find a way to get around it. And then they're going to pressure who's ever in office, whether it be Trump or whether it be Biden or whoever it's going to be, that they're going to have to start looking at Social Security again. They did this before. We stopped them, but I have a feeling it's going to happen again. So I would say, for Move to Amend, we got to make sure that we got politicians who aren't on the take and they fight for the people, and we have an administration that'll fight for the people and stop these cuts, because they're going to come. If you, even in the state of California, which is really doing a really good job on this, somehow we're going to end up paying for it in the budget because we've used up all the reserves, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Michelle?
Hi. I wasn't quite exactly sure what we were doing. I thought that we were just kind of checking in and saying where we're.
We are.
Okay, so I'm feeling fairly grounded and very blessed in the fact that I have a home and that I have food, and I'm very concerned about people's mental health right now. I'm currently studying through a program called Mind-Body Therapy, which uses somatic healing to help people work through trauma. So I'm finding myself wondering how I can reach out and help people feel more grounded in this time. I am concerned, like the man who just spoke, about Social Security, especially because I'm on long-term disability. And part of the reason that I'm not so concerned right now about my own finances, and at the same time very concerned about my own finances, is because part of my disability comes from Social Security. I'm extremely concerned about getting money out of politics, about how we are, the current administration is limiting people's ability to get to the polls, gerrymandering, just all the ways that they're trying to suppress voters' rights. This is very much concerns me. I'm very much concerned about the DNC stealing again for the second time in the second election a fair campaign cycle. And I guess I'll just stop with that. Before I end, I would just like to say that, you know, I pray a lot for changes to occur, for paradigms to shift, that I'm also very concerned about what's going on behind the scenes right now when we're all sheltering in place. Things that will not even be aware of were happening behind our backs. Very concerned about the integrity of our Constitution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as we continue to check in, if you will, mentally, emotionally, Karen.
Well, one of the things I'm doing is taking a break from all of the news and limiting TV, listening to music. Of course, there's nature. I need to get out there more often. I'm hooked up for actually a Zoom conference tomorrow with John Nichols and Senator Jamie Raskin and Teresa Van de Heuvel. And also I have a Tom Hartman one on Friday. So trying to stay involved, and actually, yes, we have such reason for concern. However, today on our local community radio station news, I guess the Supreme Court did actually decide something positive having to do with polluting groundwater. And so that was pretty amazing because they don't usually do anything in our favor. And, you know, trying to stay engaged because I think it's so important. And certainly healthcare is really a concern, and I am retired, so I'm on Social Security, and yes, they've been after that technically since 1980. So yeah, we have reason for concern, and we need to join together with others as much as we can in online conferences. And I'm so happy to see some of the people standing up and doing such wonderful things that does my heart good. This administration, I don't think that would ever happen.
Very good. I noticed a few people in the chat have indicated they want to be added to the stack, which I will do, call on you after Charlie, but also if people feel more inclined and comfortable to share how they're feeling via that mode, feel free to do so by entering and using the chat. And for people unfamiliar with that, at the very bottom of the screen, there should be a bar and an icon, one of which says stack, and another says chat, or I should say share, the other says chat. It is, if you click on chat, it'll reveal just a area to the right, and it is there that you can then type in a message. So feel free to do that if that would be more comfortable. Charlie?
Hi, everyone. Charlie Cooper here in Baltimore with the MTA working group. We're known as Get Money Out Maryland. So personally, I've been having a very fortunate time here with my wonderful wife, and we have the opportunity to exercise and eat good food, and we've been missing In-person visits with our grandchildren. We've only had one in the last 6 weeks, so that's not good, but we've been visiting with lots of people that maybe we should visit with more under normal times. And we've been very concerned about how homeless people and frontline people and so many others are, so many workers who don't get assistance and they're laid off and they can't get their unemployment. We're very worried about that. So I I have a master's degree in public health, although I didn't do that as a career, but I've been trying to help about 40 or 50 people that I have on an email list interpret the public health statistics, and I spent some time studying that and talking about what it would look like if we were actually coping with this, if we were actually putting up a public health response like contact tracing and testing, et cetera, so that we could get people back to work safely. The other thing that I'm doing on behalf of Get Money Out is studying the threats to our elections and trying to keep us in front of our supporters and other organizations with information about and advocacy about having fair, secure, accessible, and safe elections leading up to and through November. And also studying many hours a day what we can do to prevent the theft of billions and hundreds of billions of dollars of this newly created money through the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. So I have a list of about 10 or 12 excellent sources that I go through every day and check them and keep a list of them. And then every couple of weeks, we have a list of about 3,000 supporters that we update. So it's a pretty busy time, maybe not quite as busy as normal, but time of great anxiety, but great opportunity, I hope. And I hope that the people working together can use this time to create more solidarity around controlling the politicians, as we've discussed here, and the bankers. The bankers are and the other financial manipulators and speculators are a horrendous threat economically to our working citizens and to the world.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. Great opportunity to connect with people who you normally don't. That's true. Yeah. We're having for a while. All right, so I see 3 more. Maybe we can get these 3 more in before we move on. I see from the chat Jude, Lynn, and Morgan. Go ahead, Jude. Oh, you seem to be, you can unmute. There you go.
All right. Jude from Sebastopol, Northern California here. Well, I have been scaring the pants off of myself with what seems to me like medical martial law coming at us really quickly. I've been doing lots of reading and watching and thinking and researching about the origin of the AMA, history of the CDC, of WHO, of censorship on YouTube and Google, of stuff that's happening in the present time, of the history of vaccines, and the kind of guilt tripping and marginalization that anybody who questions the worth or even the safety of vaccines gets. So apropos to that, actually, the latest piece that fell into place was I followed up on an interview with a guy called E.C. Mullins, who wrote a book that was about 40 years of research, he said. And actually, just like Charlie just said, it was actually a follow-on from his deep investigation into the bankers and the banking systems. And after that, the natural direction he went was this book, and it's called Murder by Injection. And it is available. I Googled it. I just found out about it today. There's a dense paragraph write-up about what's in it. So, and then I found out that in Chicago, the first public health official has announced that there's a program that they're ready and to go ahead with. They even have bought the syringes. So that's where we're at, folks. We have the syringes being bought, and not many people understand or really can have an educated opinion, because even the as I say, the questioning, or let alone thorough investigation of vaccination hasn't been done, because it's just shunned like that. And okay, I don't want to take much longer.
Yeah, we do have to move, I think.
Yeah, just the relationship of the 282 billion of the top 1%'s wealth just went up, while millions of people just fly for unemployment. It's not a coincidence. And what this tsunami coming at us is they're mopping up the crushed economy, centralizing it all the more, and creating the COVID virus industry, where billions and trillions are sure to be made. Okay.
Thank you. All right, just to make sure we can get everybody in, please try to keep your reflections to a minute or two at the most. I've got Lynn.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be on the call with everyone. I just got off a Bernie Zoom meeting where he was thanking volunteers, and was impressive because 10,000 people had signed on in the beginning of the call. It looked like more and more people from all over the country, and that gave me some hope, and that his movement will continue, even though he won't be elected presidentially. I'm doing okay. I'm a senior, low-income senior living on Social Security, and if I didn't have Social Security, it would be a problem for me, you know, if I had a job. I'm also a retired nurse. I'm glad I'm not at the bedside because of all the risks that medical personnel. I just read, sadly, about a physician, ER physician from New York who just committed suicide yesterday in Virginia. She was apparently a phenomenal doctor, and that is the impact that has on a lot of people. I just want to steer people to 9:10 a.m. in the Bay Area. I'm in Menlo Park, and just heard on the Rick Unger show how the banks have just made $10 billion processing the small business loans. And that's one issue that we really need to look at. The difficulty is staying home I'm gaining weight because I'm not exercising quite as much. But I have the ability, a senior center nearby has just put me on Meals on Wheels, because normally I get a food box and I have to take a bus, etc., to get there. I'm not able to do that now. So spread the word for seniors who are stuck at home. It's a free, nice meal every day. I've been working on Medicare for All for 20 years. I have not given up. We had a bill in California that actually was vetoed twice by Arnold Schwarzenegger. We would have had single payer a long time ago. So I'm continuing to work on that. And being on Zoom meetings like this really inspires me when you're stuck at home by yourself and you get to see activists from all over the country participating. So thank you for inviting me to this meeting.
Well, thank you very much for participating. Appreciate it. Next, and maybe lastly, is Morgan.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Morgan Gianola, I'm in Miami, Florida. I mean, a lot of what I'm thinking has been said. I'll try not to be super long with this because I know we want to move on, but I am just thoroughly pissed off by everything happening at the governmental level. I'm highly motivated by the individual people I see on the ground, the way I see all of us relating with one another, you know, people helping their neighbors out when people lose their jobs or don't have food or something. Like, we're stepping up, the human beings interacting with one another. But like on a federal level, this is just functioning as like a giant corporate cash grab. Like the stimulus packages have been trillions of dollars for bailing out industries. Gasoline, like fossil fuel prices have fallen below $0, which is good, which is awesome. And they're talking about, we need to bail out the fossil fuel industry. And it's like, it would be confusing if it wasn't so maddening. I really see the need for like mass action of something. Like, I don't know. I don't have the words for how mad I am. And yet to some extent hopeful, but I just know that the path that we're on as a series of governmental structures is entirely unsustainable, and it's going to lead to millions or tens or hundreds of millions of people basically bankrupt. You know, tens of millions of people have lost their jobs, meaning they don't have their health care anymore. And the government's main concern is we have to make sure the giant multinational industries are doing okay, that they're going to survive through this. And they're going to print as much funny money as they need to make sure that happens. And then we're going to get stuck with the leftovers from that. And I just need to see some sort of like, all of us on a massive scale doing some sort of collective action. So, I mean, that's why I'm here trying to figure out what that is, what that looks like. Yeah, that's my summary. I don't want to talk too long.
No, that's all right. You expressed the sentiments of many of us. Absolutely. Many of us. We're trying to figure it out, and we need to figure it out together. So I noticed there was at least one or two others. Unfortunately, we don't have the time. Feel free, Hank, and anyone else, to share your feelings in the chat. But we are now going to shift. I'm going to turn it over to George Friday, who has a couple of questions she wants to share with you. George?
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see those of y'all that I can see, and it's great to hear your voices. So we just had a chance of hearing how you're feeling. Everything from rage to confusion, all of those make perfect sense. But we also want to think a little bit together right now. So in terms of that, I want to ask you to think about a couple of questions. And then we'll use Stack to hear your responses, or type your responses in the chat. Because this information that you're sharing may be helpful for us at Move to Amend in the staff and leadership to think about. So considering what's going on internationally, worldwide, what's going on in the country, what's going on where you live, and what's going on for you personally, when you think about all of those levels, worldwide, US, your community or town, and yourself, what do you see as immediate unmet needs during this time? What is an immediate need that you see that's unmet? And what strategies might we be able to use to meet those needs? So that's the first thing I want you to think about. I've got another one, but let's see what we get from this. So from yourself to your community, to your country, to the world, unmet needs right now that are immediate, and any strategies to meet those needs. I'm going to be looking in the chat and for who's on Stack, and I'm also listening for who's on Stack. Some folks have typed in here. Michelle typed in housing as an unmet need. The rent and utility freezes are a remedy. Thank you so much, Morgan. Retrofitting abandoned housing. That's awesome. Single payer. Hells yeah. Undocumented people can't get income supplements. No, they can't. And people who don't have an address also can't shelter when you don't have a shelter. How do you practice hygiene when you don't have a regular place that you bathe? Distribution of resources. I don't know if that's a remedy or a concern, but that's certainly something to think about. Certainly redistributing resources in a way that is equitable. There's some rolling that I'm not catching. Oh yes, Morgan points out that a single $1,200 payment is not enough. Uh-oh, I lost it. Let me find it. Go back.
It should be monthly for the length of the pandemic. That's what he said.
Thanks so much. And then Michelle talked about food deserts, that there needs to be more urban and community places to get food. Hells yeah, that's true. Millions of people who are on Social Security getting it cut, who need it to live off of. That's a big concern. Unpaid unemployment. Mark's daughter filed for unemployment 4 weeks ago and received no money to date from state unemployment. And Mark, if it's the Mark I think I know, who may be in Georgia, that's one of the reasons they're opening it up, Mark, so the state doesn't have to pay unemployment. My sister's in the same position here. Not letting hedge funds benefit from this crisis, right? Taking possession of housing as they did in 2008. Absolutely, they did. So getting the word out about Move to Amend, yes, at a more popular level. It's frustrating. This person, Jan, hey Jan, frustrating that you intended Earth Day event over 3 days, had no Move to Amend presence. Oh Lord. And we all know that corporate theft is a huge problem of all of what we're dealing with. And if we had the amendment, if we had them on a leash, we'd be in better shape. So Charlie from Baltimore says that 2 million in US don't have running water. Oh, Lord, it's a fact. We have to move away from the two-party system, that's right. Make water a guaranteed right, yes. Local political like-minded folks seem to be in hibernation. They lack political will, they lack strengths of purpose. Okay. Getting the word out about an amendment as a campaign issue. Our political organizers have too narrow of a focus. That's a fact. Oh, a question from Greg to you, Jan. Was the 3-day event on Earth Day live or was it virtual? Jan Wiener.
Yeah, Earth Day Live was virtual.
Oh yes, I watched part of that. There were a lot of groovy young people
So
on
I think
that.
some of it was live and some of it was virtual.
Mm.
It was a combo.
It was virtual. 350.org was part of it too. Is there anything you wanted to say, Jan? I heard a voice. I thought it was
No
yours.
thanks, I'm good.
Okay, cool. All right, y'all, now I'm going to ask the second question to make you think a little bit, get your responses about it. Uh-oh, wait a second, I did something wrong. All right, Get out of the way. Move, move. There we go. So historically, when there's crisis, it has been a chance for people to emerge with a different status quo, a different set of rules to the game. The Depression was horrible. The New Deal came out of it. So that's one example. There may be others. But thinking about this time and knowing that we may be in the position we're in or something that may feel worse for months to come, months and months ahead, and the ramification may be felt for years, and that's likely. But what are the opportunities that you see? Opportunities for democracy, opportunities for justice, and what strategies might we be able to use to push forward those possibilities? As a resource for later, not right now, but Greg, I think you volunteered to put into the chat the link to Corona Crisis Capitalism video. People may want to check that out. But I'd still like you to think about what might be some opportunities that we can come out of this having realized, and what strategies do we employ now to realize those opportunities. Let me go try to check the chat. Y'all help me, Caitlin, Jessica, Tara, Greg, checking out the chat. Okay. Opportunities for organizing on a grander scale so that we're doing better at linking with other, where'd you go? Linking with other something. I can't move this thing, y'all. Somebody's got to
with other change agents and activists.
Groovy, okay. I'm trying to get some skills, okay. Here we go. Working on it, okay. Yes.
Do you want me to help read these, George?
Sure, I'm gonna get the next one.
Okay.
Pelosi is a corporate shill. Oh my God. I saw her on something on video the other day and I was thinking, what is her deal? She's so horrible. That's hilarious. Anyone in San Francisco, please support and vote for Shahid Buttar. Yes, I agree. I know Shahid well, worthwhile human being. All right. Now, Caitlin, you can go on because I'm lost.
Okay.
Again.
Next we've got from Judith, what we need is to rethink our approach. We must collectively find ways to resolve and address the global problems. It's a global phenomenon. We must expand people's ability to understand the problems to the political, social, and economic realms to find a way of balancing the competing forces in the world. Developing this capacity is to control the effectiveness, addressing and solving many of the collectives and individual challenges we face. Let's realize and advance humanity to resolve issues nationally and internationally. You're on mute. Babe, you want me to keep going?
All that, whoever did that. Yes, that was Judith. She called it, she got that.
Keir says, the problem is that neither the Democrats or the Republicans represent the average working person. Michelle says 4-day work week for all, full pay, gives environment a chance to breathe, build infrastructure to reduce need for so many cars, more walkable cities. Margot says, wondering who will be our new FDR or our new JFK, or maybe even something better. We also need to think about what we are grateful for. This is for our psychological health. John says, we can get a loan. We can now get a loan from your 401k for only 20% interest. Wow. Sarcasm.
What a bargain.
Jan, we can't go back to our capitalist way of living. Opportunity for more mutual aid. Shelley pointed out that Shahid Buttar is an original signatory of Move to Amend. It's true. Yoni says, organize workers, build people power. Michelle says, more equitable commerce.
People can verbally weigh in too if they care by being part of a stack, or can continue this way.
I see something from John Howe. The government has done at least part of what it's needed to do in response to coronavirus. Okay. But why should the government go further into debt in order to do this? Like they do for all their foreign military bases. Government operates money now in the form of coins, okay? And could, with legislation that was introduced in Congress in 2011, bill is named here, create money in the form of bills and account money. Why should government borrow money when it can create money? They create money. Okay. Sorry, John, I'm just jamming. Thanks for
That
that
was the percentage.
observation, John. That wasn't necessarily a strategy or an opportunity, but it was a description of status quo, which is, you know, status quo.
Well, there is an opportunity through efforts that are made by organizations who are interested in seeing change in the fundamental system of money creation, the monetary system. For instance, the organization called the Alliance for Just Money is working on that and will propose to Congress that a monetary commission be set up in order to have a good look at what's happening. What we see now is that money is being created like crazy. Well, we'd like to see this created in such a way that it doesn't lay this debt on all of us that other people have referred to. So that's the issue. The underlying monetary system is a thing that constrains our ability to do things as a society, because that system makes money scarce. And as a society as a whole, it shouldn't be scarce. Only physical things should limit what we can do, not money, because money can be created by keystrokes on computers. Thanks.
There you
Money
go.
should be created as an asset, not
And there
as
are
a
a
debt.
number of comments in the chat, if y'all haven't seen them, around this in terms of money, banking, you know, the government just creating it, you know, whenever it has a whim to. I don't think I've missed anything there. And I'm pretty sure, unless there's someone else to be on stack here, I think we're ready to move on a little bit. Not rushing any.
Jenny, I see Jenny said stack.
Okay, go ahead, Jenny.
Yeah, as far as strategies,
Please.
I agree. We should have been on Earth Day. It needs to be a strategy, a demand for every civil rights, every environmental justice, every one of those things. And how do we get it on there? And I think that would be a good strategy or tactic that wherever we are, we're talking about.
Oh, very, very good. Yes, making those connections,
Jenny.
because they're, you know, the connections have been laid bare for us. We're just connect the dots and point, you know, point the flashlight in the direction. Hopefully, folks will get it. All right, good.
Can I just jump in and just say ban forced vaccination, teach nutrition of body, mind, and spirit, get individuals to take more responsibility for their own health rather than relying on big pharma. And like this needs to start, you know, we need to, I think we also need to address the way that we are educating our young people and switch our education system from simply teaching kids to be cogs in the wheel to going back to more critical thinking and really working, you know, divesting from capitalistic greed and teaching about more community building where we all work together for a common goal, like being able to breathe clean air and drink clean water.
That's a beautiful thing. We have to go a long way before we can take care of the environment and the point where we know that all the air is clean and all the water is clean. We got a lot of work to do.
Yes. And
okay, guys, there's some chat in the chat for folks. Yeah, what are you saying? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if we don't address the environment like now, we are going to be faced with more and more and more of these pandemics because we are taking so much habitat away from animals, and these viruses need a host. And so as we're destroying habitats and the animals that would normally be hosts to these viruses are disappearing, those viruses aren't going anywhere. They're very, very clever, and they have very short lifespan, so they can transmute very rapidly. And this is how they are crossing species, so that the viruses will find ways to survive. And if we continue to destroy our planet, everything that sustains us, we're done for. I mean, what, you know, when we talk about, like, people talk about, like, I don't know, like how important water is. It's more important that we have oxygen, you know. And where does that come from? Most of the oxygen we get, like 68% of all of the oxygen on the planet, is created from the oceans and plankton. And as the oceans heat, you know, the plankton is dying. And so we're literally going to be, I mean, it's interesting to me that COVID attacks the lungs and creates a suffocation, because if we don't really address our environmental issues immediately, we are literally going to suffocate ourselves.
Wow.
So,
Frightening.
Can I say
There are
something?
a lot of good things in the chat I want to call people's attention to. There's a lot of good discussion happening in there, some resource being shared. So that's awesome. Thank you all for doing that. Wow, your camera's really dark there, Jeannie. But thanks for your comments. And y'all continue to put things in the chat.
I'm sitting outside.
I'd like to contribute something. I don't know if I'm muted. Am I?
Nope.
Am
You're
I
not muted, Marco. What is it you need to contribute?
So what you're saying about all these viruses, it seems to me that what we need to do is make our bodies strong enough to resist them. And that's a nutritional problem. And I'm learning about vitamin D and vitamin C, vitamin D in large quantities, magnesium and zinc. And, you know, more needs to be done in that research. But I use a non-traditional physician, and that's his advice. I'm 84, I hardly ever get sick. So, you know, I'm generalizing from an N of 1, but nonetheless, it's working for me.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that too.
It's probably time to move, George.
Pardon me?
It's probably time to shift to the next.
Yes, we are. We are shifting now to hearing a little bit from Move to Amend folks. So we'll take a stat from folks about how all of this might impact Move to Amend. And I imagine that we want to just go around to all the Move to Amend folks besides me, or do you want to have a stack? What do you think, Greg?
Do a
Caitlin,
stack.
Tara, Jessica? You stack? All right. So Move to Amend folks, who wants to be on stack? Not it.
I got you.
I got Caitlin. Anybody else? Okay, I'll go after you, Caitlin.
Jessica Stack.
And then Jessica. Jessica can go before me too. So Caitlin, Jessica, and
Greg.
George at this point. Oh, Caitlin, Jessica, Greg, and George. Go, Caitlin.
Okay, so thanks for everything everyone has said. I really want to especially appreciate Morgan's saying that you're angry, because that's how I feel these days, probably more than any other emotion at the moment. I think it's really important that we remember to think systemically. Like, yes, we need to take care of individual people, the people that we know, the people in our communities, the people that we can help, since our government is absolutely failing to do its job. But we also need to remember that what is happening is because the system is, I don't say broken, right? Because it's not broken. It's working actually quite well for what it's supposed to do. It is corrupted, but again, not because it was on some path of going well and then became corrupted. It's been corrupted since always. You know, we have a system that is rooted in prioritizing profits and greed and holding up and supporting people who operate that way, people and companies, and then stops anything else. So as Move to Amend, one of the things that we have been talking about and thinking about is that, frankly, our amendment, which is absolutely fundamental for systemic change, is only just a tiny piece of what is necessary to shift the system. So that's one of the things that I think we all need to think as big as possible and not be small. And I guess the one other thing that I want to say that we are really lacking is leadership. And I hold every single member of Congress responsible for that, as well as everybody else in the federal government. And that's true of progressives as well. I cannot believe that the Progressive Caucus, for example, was not willing to exercise their power. It's the largest caucus that we've ever had of people who supposedly absolutely believe the opposite of the way this coronavirus pandemic, relief is being done. And yet they both voted for it and didn't even make demands to get concessions. I mean, of course, the Democratic Party didn't even do that, the leadership of the Democratic Party, but even the people who are there, who have run campaigns and tried to say that they are governing in a way that is about something different, did not even exercise the power that they have. And so I think that tells us that we have to recognize the power that we have, and we have to exercise it. We have to exercise it to make our leaders act like leaders and force them to behave differently. I mean, they could be blocking voting, they could be refusing to participate. Instead, all we're seeing is some marginal grandstanding. And I think that that is also important for us as people who are used to being marginalized by the system to figure out how to not self-marginalize, not behave in a way that is just merely, saying our opinion and then kind of expecting that that's all that we're responsible for, when we are in the situation where people are looking around and recognizing that the system is rigged against them, and that there's tremendous opportunity in that. I mean, if you think about, Move to Amend is nonpartisan, but I'm going to just take a second to talk about politics and the fact that basically the platform of Bernie Sanders would have, if that were in place, which should include the Move to Amend amendment, of course, almost nothing that has happened would have gone down the way that it has. And so the fact that our leaders on the progressive side of things, or on the left, or however you want to categorize that, on the populist side of things, are not trying to figure out how to use this opportunity strategically to move forward an agenda that we desperately need, has me really angry and frustrated. And I think we need to figure out how to make them do better. Otherwise, then there's no point to any of them being there. And we should let that be known too.
That was scathing. Scathing, you really called it. Jessica.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. I definitely feel that that sense of rage, which I think can be really motivating. What I think right now is that we have an opportunity as organizers and as storytellers and people who see the world for what's actually happening, to bend the narrative that's being put out there right now. I think a lot of people are understanding economics, and I'll use the word politics, but I mean that in a very broad way, differently than ever before. You have people who consider themselves even like non-political, neighbors that I'm talking to from a distance, my conservative family, things like that, are seeing things that happen all the time on a very micro scale. So I'll tell the story again. For instance, I was speaking with my dad, and he was upset about the guy who was hoarding hand sanitizer and selling it for a profit. And I said, yeah, that's terrible. Like, do you know that they're doing that with housing also? Do you understand how there's a consolidation of resources? If you're mad about toilet paper, like, this is happening all the time, all around us. And so I think we have an opportunity to shape the analysis of people around us, that the problems that you're seeing on a very micro scale that are affecting you in your everyday are actually happening all around us on a very large scale. And that this is a moment when people are recognizing the true material consequences of policies. And, you know, everyone on this call is like engaged in this in some way because we're here, but there are a lot of people who fancy themselves non-political, who, of course, you can't be non-political. That's not a thing, right? So how can we get those people to understand that these forces are in play around us all the time, and that this is an opportunity for like revolutionary change? And I think that we would be remiss if we missed an opportunity to do something extremely bold and radical right now. You know, small legislative policy changes, you know, is the old world. We're talking about something unprecedented now. So let's take unprecedented courage and do something that's really going to make change. Pass.
All right. Yes, Greg.
Well, again, I appreciate everyone who has contributed so far. I guess this moment for me, is bringing up the psychological dimension more than anything. I can remember back in the days I first got involved in activism back in the 1980s during the Nuclear Weapons Freeze campaign. And the strategy at that point was to tell it like it was, to show the horrors of potential nuclear war, and to think that that information alone was going to empower people, to energize people to take action. And what it did in many cases is it disabled people, it paralyzed people. And a woman by the name of Joanna Rogers Macy said that what was being done was irresponsible. If you don't give people an opportunity to process, and you don't give people an opportunity to do something tangible, then to just simply show the horrors of what seems to be a problem that we can do nothing about, and that we're not given any kind of plan to do anything, was really socially and democratically irresponsible. And so she started something called Despair and Personal Empowerment Workshops to help people come to terms with something that we were having a difficult time coming to terms with. I think concerning the climate crisis, concerning the depth and the breadth of the economic crisis that we're facing, and who knows how much longer this health crisis is going to occur, I just think that there could be some very dark places that many of us go, or do some very unsafe and personally damaging things to ourselves, and act out the fact that, we don't know how we can support one another in psychologically healthy ways, act in ways in scale that are commensurate to the problems we're facing. So I think events like this, where we're trying to not just talk politics, not just talk about economics, but talk about the heart and talk about what we can do to support one another, is extremely important and should be an ongoing piece of the social change work that we move forward with from this point forward.
Can I contribute something right along that line? May I? Am I muted? I'm not muted from my side.
We'll come back to a section where
break it up a little bit.
Right now we're focused on national team, but we'll come right back for another space for participants.
Okay. Anyone else on the national team want to be on stack? I've got myself. Anyone else? All right, I'll be the last person, then I'm going to kick it to you, Jessica. Well, it's hard for me to put words together because I don't want to preach and I don't want to cuss. So I'll say that in a lot of ways, things aren't dramatically different, because as a woman of color from the South who grew up in poverty, whose family is still a low-income family, scary is the concentration. And what I mean by concentration, I was on the phone with a colleague, a Southern white woman who grew up in Alabama. And to her, she said, like earlier we said, that it's not the government's broken, it's rigged and it's working exactly the way it is intended to. Her thought, maybe this is what she's seeing in Alabama, is that she sees this as an opportunity for very people who don't want voter rights to see Black and brown people die. That's what and she said this to me earlier this morning. First thing I was like, this is starting my day off. So that was kind of a bummer. And when I thought about what she said, you know, she may not be far off. I remember living in DC in the mid 80s, and the Heritage Foundation was near where I lived. And I don't know if y'all know who the Heritage Foundation is, but I do remember getting a friend of mine who leaked information from them that they had a long-term plan for taking over in terms of having a very close to fascist kind of ruling in this country, and they were not going to let go of that long-term plan. It felt to me like a conspiracy theories, and I thought she was off her rocker. And after talking to Mia this morning, it reminded me of that. So, you know, I'm not saying that's where we're heading, although I've been, you know, using the F word, fascism, since 2014, because I saw us heading there in terms of surveillance and lack of civil liberties. And now things can be poised so that we, you know, I think someone on the call said this earlier on the call tonight, that who knows what's happening while we're at home? You know, where are they dropping bombs? What natural resources are they stripping or destroying that we're not seeing? And we won't see because we'll be wrapped up in this in months and then recovering for years. That's the bummer side. Struggling with the personal things with my family. My sister doesn't have a place to live, so she stays at a hotel. $60 a night, that's $1,950 a month for a hotel room for her and her kids. It's horrible. And the states control unemployment. Apply for unemployment in the South and see what happens. I helped her apply online. It was crazy. Folks in Georgia are being denied, even though they should get it, because Georgia doesn't want to pay. One of the reasons, again, I said earlier that they're trying to open up. Here in North Carolina, they're trying to do some of the same things, trying to find ways. She still hasn't gotten her unemployment, my sister, and who knows if she will. It's really frustrating because my ability to support or help is very, very limited. So that feels sad. The good thing, and Jessica, I think you named this a little bit, the opportunity when all of the cracks are laid bare, no one could keep your head in the sand anymore, can't look the other way anymore, can't ignore the stink of the funk that they are doing. So hopefully people will act and demand difference, not accept anything less than everything we need for justice. No compromise, no going back, no negotiation. I ain't trying to kill anybody, but I ain't going back to what other people call normal. So now, Jessica, I will hand it over to you.
Beautiful. Thanks, George. So I'm going to take another stack of folks now that we've had even more discussion to see if you want to weigh in again. I'm hearing a lot of sentiments being expressed that I think we're all feeling. So really appreciating your insight here. I'm going to start the stack with Margot, and I just want to remind us that we're sharing space. So let's just keep our comments concise and 1 to 2 minutes each if we can, so we can all have space to speak. So I've got Margot. Who else would like to be on stack? You can either say your name and the word stack or type it here in the chat bar. You can go ahead and start, Margot, and I'll keep a stack from there.
Okay. I find myself often overwhelmed by the number of issues, it occurred to me that what I need to do is decide what is the issue that speaks to my heart, because and that is food, but other people will say housing, other people will say medical care, and so on. There are a lot of people in this country who really care. And if we kind of focus, it doesn't mean that I don't care about housing and medical care and certainly the environment, but I have to focus on something. Otherwise, I get so scattered that I don't do anything. And I find myself deleting hundreds of emails every day that are worthy, but I just can't take it all in. So, as I say, if we kind of make a priority list, what speaks to my heart? What am I supposed to think about in this world? I have a long association with Kenya, and I send money there to feed people there, and like that's because that's where my heart is. So
thanks, Margot. That overwhelm is very relatable. All right, I've got Martin, then Ben, then Delphine. Go ahead, Martin, from the beach.
Yeah, right. Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm speaking from Silver Spring, Maryland. I'm also a member of Get Money Out Maryland. We seem to have a large contingent with you tonight. And I also lived in Africa, by the way. I lived there for 2 years. I have a lot of sympathy for them, and I lived in Asia for a year. I have a lot of sympathy for them, but I've heard a lot of the different issues that we've raised tonight. But and I have a lot of sympathy for every one of the issues that we've raised. But my main issue, and the reason I've joined Get Money Out and I'm associated with Move to Amend, is my concern for the role of money in big money in our elections. And I'm especially concerned about the We the People amendment that MTA has written and is a resolution in Congress. And that, I believe, is the real underlying long-term problem that's related to all of the other issues that we're talking about. And I'd like to see Move to Amend become far more involved, if they possibly can, in getting that resolution, or frankly, any resolution passed in Congress for an amendment, if it involves petitioning, if it involves getting involved with all of the candidates for Congress and the Senate, getting them to commit to passing that resolution before the election, maybe even getting the conventions, both conventions if possible, although we both know which one is more likely than the other, to include it in their platforms. But I would like to see all the more activism nationally to get that passed and bring it to the national attention.
Thanks very much, Martin. Let's go to Ben.
Yes, I'd like to comment on something I saw in the Zoom chat by Karen Grissom. She mentioned the ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council. I think they're very dangerous puppies. It's kind of evolved from the Trilateral Commission a number of years back. But I'm glad that was mentioned because it's just folks who within that organization and folks that were in the former Trilateral Commission are looking towards the New World Order and ruled by elite, and the Constitution is a hindrance to them. So I'm glad that was brought up. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Ben. All right, we're nearing the end of the call. So I've got Delphine on the stack. Last call to put yourself on stack, and then we'll end out. So Delphine, go for it.
Thank you. It's good to see and hear from you all. I apologize for joining the call late, and I actually missed the prompt for this series of check-in. Do I understand right that we're talking about what our biggest social justice concern is during the current pandemic?
That's a fine topic. We had a couple questions posed before this, but I think that's a fair one to go with. Go ahead.
Oh, shoot. I wish I had heard those.
I'll put them in the chat bar so that you can see them too.
Oh, thank you. I was looking at them in there, but I couldn't see them. Let me take a look.
Okay, there's those, and then
maybe going there's a couple other people who were on, so maybe going to them and then going back to Delphine, maybe?
All right.
Yeah. I'll come right back to you, Delphine. Good to hear your voice. Let's go with Jan and then Mark, and then I'm not sure, Kira, if you were trying to be on staff or not, but we'll go Jan and then Mark. Go ahead, Jan.
So I see myself splitting in two. Kind of one piece of me is how do I want to use this amazing amount of time that I have on my hands now? And I see this as a gift, and I am so, so fortunate to be alive and to be safe and to have toilet paper, you know. But anyway, so it's energy, time, and then resources to share. So I've dedicated my resources to share, besides with Move to Amend, to the Indigenous population, because they're underserved and underattended, and no one ever really talks about them. And my time, I'm thinking, and let me just preface by saying, Caitlin, Jessica, Keon, Greg, George, I will follow you into the fire. So just lead the way. But in the meantime, I'm spending time with getting voter turnout, making phone calls, doing texting. And that seems to be, and you can do that all day from the comfort of your own home with a margarita in your hand or whatever you need to make it palatable. Pass.
All right. I'm volunteering with you next time. That sounds great. All right, let's go to Mark. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Mark from Georgia, and I'm really happy that we've gotten together and been able to discuss our concerns this evening. But one of the things that I feel is so compelling for us is we've talked about so many different things, from vaccinations or the virus to government corruption, to healthcare in general, and our emotional responses to all of that. And ALEC, and the list goes on and on. But I feel like for us as an organization, as a group, it's very, very important for us to tie each or hold on to those with a very short leash that connects to the amendment. That all of these translate into why the amendment is important. And we need to keep thinking in that. That's my feeling. I'm just expressing my emotion about this, or my process about this, is that it's very important for us to make a very short, quick connection to the amendment for each category that we've been trying to air out this evening. Because that is really the center and the heart of what is keeping us bound together. And I just want to encourage us all to constantly keep returning, or how should I say, focusing our energy on the amendment, and we can do it from each of those angles that we've just been discussing. And that's kind of my encouragement. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for your dedication always. For Margot, we're talking about the We the People Amendment. Thanks, Caitlin, just linked it there. Okay, so I'm gonna close out the stack here after this. We've got Delphine and then Kira, I hope I said your name correctly, and then I'm gonna go back to Jan for just a quick announcement. So go ahead, Delphine.
Thank you, Jessica. Those were excellent questions, and I feel that the greatest unmet needs that I'm seeing locally, as well as nationally right now are around the needs of unhoused folks, folks who are incarcerated and in detention and facing deportations, the needs of women and children and survivors of sexual and relationship violence, family violence, child sexual abuse, which are increasing under the pandemic, where folks are expected to shelter in. Of course, unhoused people cannot shelter in place, and folks incarcerated practice safe distancing or hygiene that's necessary to protect themselves. Folks in institutional settings also are being exposed to COVID-19 against their will. COVID-19, excuse me. And we need to be there for people with disabilities right now, who are at greatly increased risk of COVID-19 infection, as well as our elders. Like I'm seeing those patterns which were a problem in the social justice movement locally and nationally before the pandemic hit, become more of a problem now. They were always somewhat overt, but persistent problems that kept us divided and kept those on the oppressed end of the scale excluded from our work as a movement. And it's evident in the way that actions are organized, direct actions, and who gets a say in decisions, and who gets a voice at the rallies, who gets to even be part of a march or a rally, and who has to stay home. I'm also concerned that sex workers remain marginalized in the larger social justice movement in terms of opportunities for the kinds of transformative changes that we need and establishing a real democracy. I'm excited about the development of Movement for a People's Party and its collaboration with Burn the DNC, or I guess merger with Burn the DNC. And I'm excited to be part of that. I'm, however, cautious and somewhat worried about unaddressed issues within Movement for a People's Party that parallel the ones I just mentioned. Particularly, I want to see a commitment on the part of MPP and Burn the DNC to address the issues of sex workers' rights and decriminalization and climate justice and disability justice, and also the issues around unaccounted for sexual and relationship violence that continue to pervade our movement.
Absolutely.
Because they are happening in ways that those who are doing the harm are often in leadership positions and they continue to get platforms. They continue to get free passes, and we as organizations and as a movement we need to start creating community accountability plans and safer spaces using new policies that we can develop and adopt based on existing models. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delphine. Those are really important points. Things that are happening all around us happen with a much finer point in times of crisis like this. So thanks for saying those things. Okay, we're at the end of our call. I've got here on the stack here, and then Jan, who wanted to say something. I'm wondering if we can do those very quickly. Please be conscious that we're at the end of our time. So Kier, go ahead for a quick comment.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just kind of getting up to speed on your organization and what you're doing. To me, there's a lot of very, very structural problems in the US. And really, they all go back to one main cause, which is that high money people, high money corporations can really give anything they want to members of Congress, the president for their campaigns. In any other industrialized country, this would be called bribery and would be illegal. But because it's legal here and we only have two parties, the system actually rewards them and says, this is the way things have to be. So all of the policy that we're really getting out of Washington is geared towards those billionaires that contribute and basically buy Congress members. So the only way that you're going to get past, to make any progress whatsoever, because the Democrats and the Republicans are both in on this together, is you've got to get rid of Citizens United. You've got to, just block out anybody besides natural people from contributing to campaigns, and only have that to be a limited amount. Without doing that, nothing else is going to happen. It's unfortunate that's the way it is, but that's where we're at, and
Right.
hopefully your organization can move that forward. I just want to kind of give you my 2 cents on it.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And Citizens United is just the tip of the iceberg. That's just a symptom, right? We're talking about something much, much deeper than just money and politics. This is corporate power, deeply ingrained into the culture and policies. Okay, Jan, really quick announcement.
Very quick. Okay, California affiliates, our group of affiliates in California is putting together a podcast. We're trying to put together a podcast as one of our goals for our Move to Amend. And we're thinking a 5-minute podcast, and we'd like to use a famous person to actually do the podcast. So it would be a sort of a 5-minute spiel about Move to Amend. And we were wondering if anybody in this group had any connections with anyone in any way that you could lead us to. I'm happy to follow up, that we can pick up, a connection to and get to the person. So for example, someone in Nevada County knows Michael Moore's cousin or something, but then the connection fell through. So something like that, where does anyone know of anybody, your dentist or somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who could connect us to a famous person. We're thinking, Ariana Grande or, Taylor Swift, somebody who's young would be great, who's got a voice and got a calling and, can be cool and hip and groovy. So anyway, if you know of anything, please email me, and I'll put my email right here in the chat box. Thank you so much. Pass.
Great, thank you so much. All right.
Can't hear you, Jessica.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm going to hand this back over to Greg to close us out. Thank you all so much for your insight and for being here.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. The email that went out, I think it was today or yesterday, spoke about the various projects that we are in the midst of embarking on and continuing in this transition period, including check out our new website if you haven't. We plan to sort of update and magnify our movement education program to provide it as a resource to others than just simply affiliates who are trying to become oriented on issues of democracy and related oppressions and how those connect to Move to Amend. Our Pledge to Amend campaign, where we try to reach out to existing candidates running for office and getting them to sign up. We definitely want to double down on between now and the November election. We're also embarking during these times where we have to be physically separated, virtual barnstorm tours, So if you are at all interested in possibly helping us have a Barnstorm tour through Zoom, through this kind of format in your community, feel free right now to put your name in the chat and we will follow up with you. This is a way, yeah, we're stuck where we are, but it is also an opportunity to bring in some new people who may not necessarily want to come out to events, but if we organize these kinds of events through Zoom, they can stick around where they live and still participate. So if you are at all even interested in exploring that, let us know and we'll follow up with you on how you can help us organize one of these things to either your group, any group that you may be a part of, or your community and any circles that you may be a part of. And so the only other thing to say is that, you know, we did this evening as a way to try to reach out and touch you at a personal level. But we know the personal is connected to the social and vice versa. So hopefully this has been a way to provide you with some comments that you've heard from others, some reflections, some sense of feeling hopefully a bit more positive, or at least strengthened emotionally to want to continue the work. And hopefully some of that work will be with Move to Amend, because we cannot, from a national level, think that we can accomplish anything solely from a few staff people and a few board people. What makes this movement strong is all of you. And our movement, our effort, absolutely must be connected to even larger movements. And so we're working on that. And with your help, hopefully we can broaden and deepen our relationship with other people, other groups, and really be part of a movement for fundamental change that is on the scale commensurate to the many problems that we're facing. So with that, good night.
Good night. Good night, good night, good night.
Good night,
everyone. Happy days, happy days.
And again, before you go off,
Stay
if you want to
healthy.
put your name in the chat, if you're interested in exploring a virtual barnstorm in your community, please.
I got everybody who responded so
Oh, you
far.
did. Great.
Got
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.